Carl here from Games, Brains and a Head-Banging Life, GBHBL.com for short, and I am super pleased to be chatting with the Swedish hard rockers, Dead Lord. It is an absolute pleasure to be speaking to you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. I've been working all day in the guitar shop where I spend my time when we're not out touring, and it's really sweaty, but apart from that, it's really nice.
Oh, so music's intricately linked into your life.
Yes. It's coming quite handy at times, if there's a band that you really like and they have busted guitars and you're fixing them, maybe you could, sneak a little record into their gig bags or whatever.
An opportunity
it's been known
to network.
happen. Yeah. But
How's life?
Sweden is pretty much everyone knows each other. All bands know each other, so it's like one small city, basically, the music scene here.
That's small, because we've spoken to a fair few Swedish bands in the last few weeks. It's been quite interesting across a wide array. So how's life been for you over the last few months in regards to, well, the world we live in now, the COVID times?
Frustrating, releasing an album with no shows to be played. It's kind of weird. Trying to compensate with going for these, web streamed things, which generally are like, running into the library and shouting for full lungs. Like, it feels so wrong.
Yeah.
you get nothing back. But, it is what it is.
You not find yourself comfortable with those live streams then?
I mean, it's more like a rehearsal with someone holding a camera in your face. The weird part isn't the playing. I mean, we know how to do that. It's just not getting anything back. So, like, that's what you feed off when you're playing a live show. It's like that 14-year-old dude standing and shouting in your face for an hour gives you sort of, connection, or he tells you where it's at,
Yeah.
So when you don't have that, it's just really, you don't get that party vibe. You don't get that sort of feeling,
Yeah, because it's like a symbiotic relationship. Your energy on stage is for us in the crowd, and likewise our reactions.
Totally.
To you.
Yeah, and also if you're playing a bad song, or if you're like playing a terrible show, if you're playing in front of people, they'll happily tell you that it's not good. Whereas if you're standing there on your own, you're like, you might get lost in your own wankage, maybe.
It's so strange. Instead, you end up doing these live streaming shows, the European Metal Alliance, Into the Grave, Century Media's own Isolation Fest, and I guess you end up obsessing more over the statistics and stats and the views.
Yeah, which is boring. I think a lot of bands do that nowadays. They just look at their Instagram and, the more followers, the better. It's kind of, in my mind, it's been really nice to just have that sort of like, well, did we sell enough tickets this time? That's been my way of measuring, which I think is the proper way of doing it. But, it isn't quite as fun to just update a web page to see how many views you got. It's not really, doesn't give me anything.
But it is part of being in a modern band, unfortunately.
Yep. We'll just hope that this COVID thing just mellows down a bit, at least.
There was some benefit, I think, as well of these live streams, like particularly the European Metal Alliance, because that was for the UK's Bloodstock Festival, was a major replacement for us in this country, and you were on that, and that gave you great exposure in the UK.
Yeah, sure. But that's the same with, any festivals. Like, even if you play the most terrible slot, festivals, they're usually this kind of place where people who just happen to pass by with, eating a sausage, and they hear some sort of Swedish rock in the, in the horizon, they usually check it out, and maybe you gain 1 or 2 listeners from that. So it's great to have this thing rather than nothing, but I prefer live shows.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, as well, during this period, you've not been sitting around twiddling your thumbs. We're now in the twilight period of the release of your new album, Surrender. How are you feeling about it?
I'm fairly proud, you know. I think pretty much every band always, you know, they always think that their latest album is the best album and whatnot. So I'm gonna try not to go there, but you know, it was fun. We did this thing as a three-piece because Olle, our guitar player, had left the band, and we were kind of, you know, we had a meeting, and we were like, you know, discussing, should we do another album? I mean, you know, okay, let's do it as a three-piece, and if people like it, then we'll just get out playing. And it actually ended up being really fun. You know, me and Martin, we both played guitar and bass on different tracks, and it was kind of challenging to, first of all, play the bass because it's really, really hard. It's probably the most difficult instrument there is, in my opinion. And that and tambourine is really hard. But then also, you know, the other albums were recorded live in the studio, and this time we had to like put down one track at a time, which is kind of, you know, confusing in my mind, because if you're standing there and you're recording and you're standing like as a full band and you're just doing it, you know if it's a good take or not. You can hear it. But if you're starting off with drums and then you add a guitar, it's kind of, you know, you don't really know where it's going until you pretty much put down the vocals. So that was kind of an emotional roller coaster, I guess I'd say.
Absolutely. Almost like, dare I say, starting again and changing up entirely how you've operated from the previous albums.
Yeah.
Almost terrifying.
Yeah, it was. You know, there were a few nights there when we were in the studio and I went home and I felt like the worst musician alive. But then, you know, the reward is the album. When you get to hear the mixes and it actually sounds pretty decent, that's kind of, you know, makes it all worth it. I'm not one of those who particularly, I don't really enjoy recording. I prefer playing live, you know. So, you know, it's a thing that you do, and it's a creative thing, you know. But it's kind of frustrating. It's like scratching an itch and you can't really find the itch. So you only get that shot, then you have to wait to the next album if you mess something up.
That is true. Well, it's got to relax you a little bit that the reactions to the singles released so far has been very positive. Does that take some of the pressure off?
Yeah, of course. That's nice. The opposite would have sucked. So, you know, it's fun, but it's still, you know, we have one more single to go and then the album will be out. So we'll see. Maybe. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, of course. Until that full thing's out, you can't gauge the overall thoughts of your fans.
No, but I got a good vibe.
Yeah, that's what I think the point of the singles is, right? And the comments and the reaction to it is it starts that vibe, and I guess everybody starts thinking and focusing on Deadlord. And then when you're in that zone sometimes, it works out better.
Yeah.
So what about some of the themes or ideas behind it? Just looking and cursory glancing at the album artwork is incredibly eye-catching. And the title of Surrender seems very pointed. Was there a unified goal here, or was it a matter of just what sounded good?
Well, first of all, when you name something, it needs to sound good. So that was, you know, pretty cool word. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of the songs are, you know, kind of touching on topics that are kind of, you know, from our time, kind of depressing, almost politics, you know, stuff like that. And instead of singing in a preaching way, you know, sort of Rage Against the Machine style, just preaching to the listeners, I thought it was more enjoyable and fun for the listener to, if I sang from the viewpoint of the villain or the bad guy. So that sort of narrative is kind of throughout the album, with a few little personal heartbreaks that ended up being songs as well. But they're all like sort of, I think Surrender works really well if you listen to the album.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, like, both feet of Deadlord rooted in the classic rock signature sound, the expectation is that you'd be mostly avoiding musical statements, strong musical statements, and instead just kind of go for energetic, catchy, memorable, feel good moments. But you do. Both apply here, strong musical statements and the energetic, catchy, and memorable numbers. How easy was it for you to balance that?
Well, the rule is, or the equation is, the more depressing the topic,
Uh-huh.
the snappier the song needs to be. So, if you get really, really terrible and depressing things, write a major song. That's cool. No, I mean, I don't really think in those terms. I get inspired from things that are happening in the world that I can't do anything about. And for some reason, that sort of feeling makes me want to write songs. And then I do. And I just try to make them somewhat, good rock tunes. That's pretty much it. But sometimes it kind of feels, that you need to maybe have another faster one on there because it's kind of, you need to balance it out. But
Yeah.
Mostly I just try to write songs.
And this is what you end up with, which is incredible. Sounds so simple.
It's a lot of anxiety comes into writing, or like the whole creative process for me, because I'm one of those people who I usually wait until, like, just before deadline. Whatever that deadline may be, writing lyrics because you go and record them in the studio next day, or presenting a song to the band on next rehearsal, or maybe doing a record cover artwork. For some reason, just around 4 or 5 in the morning is when I get the most done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's terrible way of working. No one likes it. Not me, not our management, not my bandmates. But it works for some reason.
I was going to say, have you even considered trying it differently?
Yeah. Of course, I tend to like have. I imagine, or I would like to think that I try to be somewhat prepared. 2 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
Really, I never really end up being like on my toes if it's not, knife to your throat, that sort of situation. So it's just, it's awful. Yeah. So, anxiety, and then it happens.
The end result seems to be at least somewhat worth it.
Yeah, totally. Otherwise I wouldn't do it, of course.
Yeah. We love pigeonholing bands in rock and metal. It's the favourite thing to do. Take a band, define what they sound like, and put you in a genre. It happens to you, Deadlord. And unfortunately, the word dated gets thrown out a lot, particularly when it comes to modern takes on that classic sound. What do you say to those who would dismiss you based on preconceived ideas about what you sound like?
I mean, that's, if they don't want to like the music or listen to it, that's fine. I don't crave that everyone even listens, because people don't want to listen. They have their ideas. They want to go places. They want to so I'd rather just appreciate the people that do like the band. Is this the most boring answer ever? Might be. But it's true. I mean, I don't really, hold grudges. I'm not one of those people, who's jealous about things, or, I generally don't really think too much about people,
Cool.
in general. If you get a terrible review, a shit sandwich, that would suck. And that can sort of get to you. But, all in all, a lot of people are differently wired when it comes to a lot of things. So, that's kind of comforting to know that there are a lot of assholes out there. And maybe those are the people that don't like my music.
Absolutely.
And all the good guys. Yeah.
And ultimately as well, the score. You've been doing this long enough. Not music divides. You're not going to please everybody.
No. And, I think everyone has this friend or, meets people in the pub who's like this bullshitting sort of people. And I have a hard time with that. I mean, engaging in that or bonding over it, because it's like, if you do anything, that's better than doing nothing. And generally the people who are kind of, bullshitting, they're mostly into just criticizing other people, not really being creative themselves. So even if someone makes the suckiest album ever, they made an album, and that's, an achievement.
Yes.
But I think people find some sort of, their identity in disliking things, and it's a sort of, way of trying to be someone, I guess.
Yeah.
Or finding oneself.
Yeah. That's what they want to do. I get it. You talked about, obviously, the inability to go out live. Have you kind of come to terms with that? Are you feeling comfortable with it, considering it's pretty much every band now?
I mean, it's nice to have a summer where you don't have to, fly everywhere, or, if you, like a few years ago, we toured the whole year away, and that was kind of,
crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of exhausting. So this is more like a sort of a break from that thing, which is, it's kind of nice. But of course, I miss the playing shows and also miss the money, because it's they're needed, the cash.
Absolutely. It's something everyone always kind of forgets. This is a source of income for bands, your merch sales and stuff like that. And sure, you can buy stuff online, but I imagine the sales online compared to the sales at a show are quite different.
Yeah, and also the fees, when you play in like these live stream things, you get maybe a few €100 tops if they're feeling that like they want to spend some money on you, which
feeling generous.
A lot of these festivals, or whatever they're called, don't really seem to think it's worth it if they don't have to supply a venue or whatever their reasoning is. But yeah, no money if there are no shows.
Yep. No money, no shows, we'll have no bands. So get out there and support these guys.
Yeah, did you see that? That was a really sneaky way of me telling people to buy our merch.
I thought I'd fill in the blank. Where do you think Deadlord excels, though? Studio or live? Like
live.
If I've never...
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
No doubt about it. Which is like, I've been thinking a lot, which is worst, like sounding better live or sounding better on the album? Because like if people go to your show, or like they see you at the festival and then they buy your album, they'll go home and be somewhat disappointed, maybe.
Really?
Is the opposite better? Like being all right live and then being super great on the album? I don't think so, no. It's better to be, because then you leave them hungry for more and they'll come to the next show. So yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what we are about. We are a live band, and from the start, we've been trying to play as much as we possibly could, and that's our way of kind of getting around, seeing the world, and getting old without realizing it, I guess, because these 8 years have been, they went by fast.
You wake up and suddenly there's a bit more of a gut, a few grey hairs you didn't know you had.
Well, the shirts they seem smaller now, I don't know.
What plans then, if any, that you can talk about, do you perhaps have in the work over the next 12 months? I know you have a European tour with the excellent Lucifer in November of 2021.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yep.
We had a few summer festivals asking us if we wanted to play next year instead of this. So that's kind of not really set in stone yet, because, it's kind of hard making plans that far ahead. So it's mostly the Lucifer thing. Hopefully it will happen. I'm really dying to get out there.
It's a long wait, so fingers crossed, and as always, watch this space with Deadlord.
I also want to see Martin play double shows.
That's going to be pretty exhausting by the end.
Yeah. Well, he plays guitar though. It would have been worse if he played the drums, you know.
Ooh, yeah.
But yeah,
Right.
gladly we're the supporting acts. He'll be nice and fresh when we're playing, and then he'll be kind of sludgy, which kind of suits the music. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it works. And, you know, you're young enough.
Yes.
Finally, before you go, there's some strong moustache game going on Dead Lord. Any advice for those would-be moustache growers?
Yeah, Adam he had a hard time with his mustache. And I always said from the start, a mustache needs time. It needs time. A lot of people try, or a lot of boys, men, I don't know, try to, grow a real cool one, a solid, thick one. But then they give up when they reach the sort of in-between phase. That's where you need to be strong. That's where you need to just have patience, because eventually it will come and you'll be happy. You'll have a mustache.
Be patient. That is
Yeah.
words to put on a wall.
Yeah. Be patient and your mustache will show up.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon and help us out over there. That's patreon.com/GBHBL, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?